and I knew all of us, we gave money, or say, help the nation, build the nation. But there was no reciprocation. When you got heat on yourself or something like that, they wasn't going to come. My belief, from what my research shows, that the crookedest ministers in the world was during that time. Rolls-Royce driving John Muhammad in San Francisco in the mid-'70s or early '70s when the FBI came to talk to him. Now, I was out of the country, but the brothers in Temple 26 right there, it used to be in the Field Auditorium, that's what they told me this guy pissed on himself. Rolls-Royce driving John Muhammad, pissed on himself, right? When they transferred me, disciplinary transfer from McNeil Island up in Washington to Leavenworth, that's when I came in contact with all that. Boy, that's the best transfer I ever had. Because the Islamic Party, you know, Abdul Haq's literature came in there. Dar Islam, they was there. You know, all and so actually, and all the stuff that had happened on this coast, all the brothers that was in prison from the East Coast, I met them in Leavenworth. If I would have stayed over there at McNeil Island, I would have been there. The police didn't want me to stay there, the warden, because I knew everybody and they thought I'd have too much, you know what I mean, authority. So they said, we'll send that nigga to Leavenworth. They used to call it the end of the world at that time. That was wonderful. For the Nation of Islam, I met brothers from Kansas City, you had a book one time about Philadelphia. The whole fruit from Philadelphia, I ain't gonna mention, the whole fruit from Philadelphia. The whole administration was there. Kansas City, the minister, the secretary, all of them was there trying to help build a nation. But the nation, I'm not going to mention the Negro minister up there in Philadelphia, but the amount of money, the amount of accumulation that passed through the nation, we have an understanding about how much it was, you know, because all of us was supporting the Nation of Islam. And that money was not getting to Chicago. If it was, when Imam Muhammad came into office, first he called himself the Supreme Minister. Then he called himself the Mujaddid. Then he called himself the President. Well, actually, Imam Muhammad was a Mujaddid. He revived, renewed, and polished up Tajdeed, from Jadid to make things new. He renewed religiously the whole, what was the Nation of Islam, and took it to the Sunnah. Now, he did an excellent job on the religion. I'm not going to comment on the politics. But Imam Muhammad made several statements, twice at least that I know of. Once he was giving a lecture and he looked around at the people who was on the stage with him, and he said, do you ever hear, they not with me? Did he say?
Yeah, that's my mother would tell me.
Yeah, that's what
years ago.
He said, yeah.
That lecture.
They not with me.
Remembers that lecture.
They with themselves. I've had personal experience with those Negroes.
Yeah.
We was talking about the chief was in Iran. The brothers from Iran give me something to take to the chief, and the people surround him. I said, this is what I want to give him. Okay, I'll go check. guy gets it, y'all would know who I'm talking about. He so-called takes it and then brings it back to me. I don't even believe it was right there in Cincinnati, in Ohio, the big program. They didn't get it. Okay. When I got out of Leavenworth, when I went to the Masjid in Oakland, the Masjid in Oakland used to be an old Catholic school. Boy, it had a school, what used to be the church, and I looked at the minister, and I looked at the secretary, and the secretary, I knew him from Jahiliyyah. I said, so anyway, I waited a while and they asked for a donation to paint the masjid. They had the Elijah Muhammad Culture Center, they had the masjid, and they had houses around there, the big 2- and 3-story houses for nurseries and all that. They owned that because y'all may not remember, but they were collecting money for a plane, an a jet for Elijah Muhammad. And when his plane was bought, when they bought the plane, then Oakland had all that money left over, so they bought that center free and clear. Once I donated a lot of money to get the whole place painted. It wasn't painted for 5 or 6 years. Then I started seeing different things. I'm not going to go into the things that I saw, but the decisions that I made was because of what I came into contact with in the Nation of Islam, and later on with Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad. Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad said when I was at Leavenworth, he said if the white man came and got me, y'all wouldn't do nothing. In other words, he also came to Kansas City because the masjid in Kansas City, remember the fruit is there from Kansas City. Leavenworth is 35 miles from Kansas City. So inside of Leavenworth, we know what's going on outside because all it is Kansas City. Let's say if Nathaniel Muhammad, let's say if he was a brother of Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad, and he got a case for drug selling, and Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad came to Kansas City to investigate himself, and he closed his mouth and went on back. So what he found, because they were saying that the police was working hard to set us up because we were working for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and guess what? Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad, the chief himself, he went on back. So he had to find out something. Not only they sent Nathaniel Muhammad to the federal penitentiary and convicted him of drug dealing, but here's what I'm saying. We ask everybody, if you don't know what's going on, we want you to have trust in what we say or call somebody to find out. And if you don't know, keep your mouth shut until you find out. Because this masjid has had characteristics from the very beginning that whatever we talked about, in some kind of way, we supported it also. So we supported the Black Panther Party. We supported the Nation of Islam. But those ministers, during the time of Elijah Muhammad at the end of his life, the criminal element in Chicago was so, the people was hitting people upside the head, the other believers, with $100 bills. It was so ruthless. But that's how, Malcolm said that it had become corrupt. That's in his time. Imagine 10 years later. Imagine 64 and then 74. The point I'm making is, if we alluded to someone's behavior or someone's attitude, we were saying that because the nature of the community had changed. When I was in California, we went into different prisons. I'll put it this way. In Oakland right now, call Oakland, California. Ask them, what is the condition of the Masjid, Elijah Muhammad Cultural Center, and those buildings around that they own? Remember, we own that property. It's like we own our property here. All of a sudden, and you'll find the names, somebody started getting loans and loans, and now they're able to have Salatul Jummah. And I'm only going, since I was there a few years, this was, they're going. My understanding is they don't own that property anymore. And I know 25 years ago when I walked in to make Jummah, or some program on a Sunday, it had on the wall, mortgage. We didn't have no mortgage. This means somebody got a loan on that. They kept getting loans, and they lost the property. That big Oakland property. Some of the dear captains and ministers, okay, we was a part of the nation building crew. If you talk about Philadelphia, some of y'all have read about the brothers and what they, we were all in prison together. We know what they did, and they know what we did. And the wealth of that community was built off people that wanted to contribute to nation building. It's nation building time. The moral and ethical standard was rock bottom. Rock bottom. None of the brothers that ever gave or contributed was ever helped, even quietly or anything. And that was a national dilemma. I'm from California. I know what was happening there. Then I came to Leavenworth, and all of everything, the brothers from everybody, we was all, what do you think we were doing in prison? We was doing in prison because the economic crew that had courage and backbone, and got huge amounts of money, it was siphoned off. Now, you have to remember the Nation of Islam has been infiltrated, so heavily that it's unbelievable. So the people that took and stole and abused the believers were government agents and colored people, a mixture. Maybe let's say half of them was niggas and the other half was agents, just for mathematical purposes. Okay. Then, how do we know that? Imam Muhammad said in 76 or 77, he said, I'm going down, in fact it was around July, he said it was on the sun. I'm going down and I'm talking to the FBI myself, because this place is full of the FBI, and I want to tell them right, what we about. Just like we talk to the FBI, we say, this is what we do. This is what we about. And if you hear something else, that don't go with what we about. Greatest lecture, I think, that Imam Muhammad made was in Philadelphia in 1976. It was called Remake the World. Remake the World, that was great. But that's the way he was thinking at that time. When he first came into office, he wanted to make the transition, and there was no blueprint for taking people that was practicing what they were practicing, racial nationalism, right? And bring them to the Sunnah. There's no guidebook, right? Even there's the following the Quran, there's the functional steps from Jahiliyyah to Deen are there, but for modern times, like you can get a book on how to fix cars, how to organize, right? There's no book like that. You got this, here's a group of people. They follow leadership, they got all of that stuff, and we want to change them to the Sunnah. So Imam Muhammad's steps, I said to myself years ago, after doing what I'm doing now, I said if I would have known what I know now, I would have stayed in there. I would have stayed with him because he didn't have, hey man, that's the way it goes. That's the dilemma of leadership. That's the way it is. So you have to do like we do. Well, you know what we tell the boss man. We done already whooped him 4 or 5 times in a row. And if he don't act right, like sign a little treaty, we're gonna whoop him again, this time. No, because you gotta remember now, the ball is in our court. You gotta remember our forecasts, our predictions. Where's the system and where are we? It's clear. But anyway, let me get back to this, because we wanted to clear up. Revile not those whom they call on besides Allah. In other words, don't talk about, so as I said, if we said anything about Elijah Muhammad or some slip of the tongue, that's basically what it was. We might have said something like the lamb without spot or blemish or something. That was, if you take it as one way, whoever you are, you never put a dime into that situation. You never put your life into it. And you got a phone, you can call California and just keep calling, and you'll find out that with every group that had any stature, we stayed with the Nation of Islam until the corruption was overbearing. We stayed with the Black Panther Party till Huey got out of, in fact, most of the people in my crew came from the Black Panther Party because they figured we was blacker than the party. Plus, it was instant resources at your disposal. So anyway, we stayed and we supported everybody. And you can substantiate all of this. Huey Newton changed the party. We surmised it this way. He went in as a revolutionary, and if you in the penitentiary or the county jails, them niggas be driving brohams up and down the tier. You know what I mean? In other words, everybody there, man, I had a broham, I had this, I had that, and I had hoes, and I had, and they make it sound exciting. Them niggas didn't have nothing, because I knew all the people that was in the echelon. Everybody at CMC West, probably belong in the poverty program. So what Huey did was, he hooked him a group of them niggas that was in jail. And when he came out, Bobby Seale and all those brothers, the grocery store owners, black that you're supposed to help, shaking them down. That's why I took money to Algeria. I didn't help them anymore because they went bad. Huey went bad in 1970 and 71. And so I know what I'm talking about. Plus, by that time, they were all just, everybody was so infiltrated, you know what I mean? That part of the movement we was in over our heads. We were dealing with the United States government that was brutal, and it don't give you no chance. We're gonna give you niggas a chance to learn how to become revolutionary. Boss man did you just like a baby in a thing. He snatched you out of that thing and busted your head upside the wall, holding your feet. That's the way the system did us. I'm one of the only ones that went through the process. And out of all of those people, I believe I came out the best. I came out the best because I made the transitions, you know, black nationalism, black liberation, you know, Islam. And the ones that came to Islam, some got diverted. They got diverted in their implementation. When I was the Imam in 1979, 80 in the prison, brothers from the World Community of Islam in the West would come in and they would take money from the government. Right? In other words, and then the chaplain would make a joke about it. Yeah, Mr. Shaw, I got your money. You know what I mean? And we didn't do that before. The other thing is accreditation. The people that was there in California, the state of California gave the accrediting right or certification right to certify whoever could come in and talk to prisoners. And they were pro-American. And I knew their position, and that was